You've probably heard me talking about this self-sufficient living skills bundle that's been going on. And I have been spending the last week flipping through so many of the incredible resources within this bundle. Now, I will say there's a lot. There's over 118 different ebooks and courses and lessons sharing incredible wisdom and knowledge with you so you can live off the land and you don't have to rely on this corrupt and broken system for everything for your family. Anyways, I wanted to share some of my favorite things. One, first off, is off-grid homeopathy. This course is loaded with so much incredible knowledge, talking about homeopathy for first aid, for colds and flu, how to make your own homeopathic remedies. Like, as an herbalist who loves to teach that stuff, that's pretty exciting to hear it in the homeopathy realm. There's also some incredible fermentation guides, so many other amazing herbal recipes and food recipes, and how to make your own sourdough bread, how to do your own organic gardening and canning of all of your foods. Really, there is so much. And yes, I know. I've talked about it a ton, but this entire bundle is only $50 right now until Sunday, March 24th. I'm sharing my herbal first aid skills, which is a course that's $47 on its own. I'm sharing recipes that I used when I got my products into REI for herbal first aid kits and so much more. You'll have to check it out. I'm serious. Like, you can absolutely change your life with this bundle. So there is a link in the show notes for you, and I hope you check it out. I hope you take advantage. Don't worry, you don't have to go through everything right away. You can access everything for up to a year. Once you're in the course or have the download, it's yours for life. It is a steal of a deal. Okay, self-sufficient living skills bundle in the links for you. Yeah, I am so excited about today's guest. This is Robin Haglund, and we met in a mutual program where we've both learned a ton together. And what I love about Robin is she is a gardening genius. She runs Garden Mentors, and she's also a fellow herbalist and a plant whiz who helps so many other people learn how to garden and grow their own gardens, like far beyond anything they've ever dreamed of. She teaches people in person and online, coaches you through the whole process, and will help you not spend outrageous amounts of money. I mean, maybe you might, but she'll help you stay doing it sensibly. I think that's the best way to say. So I'm super excited to have Robin here. Again, she's also a fellow herbalist, but her real spot of shining is as a gardening mentor. Hello, and welcome to the Herbalist Path podcast. I'm your host, Mel Mutterspaugh. I'm a clinical herbalist, environmental educator, founder and formulator of an herbal products company called Mountain Mel's Essential Goods. And my most important role in life is being the mother of a beautiful young daughter. I also have this crazy passion for teaching people to use plants as medicine in a safe and effective way. Herbalism is the most sustainable way to take care of yourself, your family, the plants, and our precious planet. In this podcast, you'll get a mix of interviews with fellow herbalists, herb farmers, product makers, herbal educators, clinicians, and plain old plant geekin' herb nerds similar to myself. You'll also get some episodes where it's just me dishing you some great info on how you can safely use herbs for yourself and your family. It's an honor to have you here and joining in on a serious mission to inspire a movement where there's an herbalist in every home, again. Did you know that your kitchen cabinet is filled with some of the absolute best medicine around? It's true. The things you commonly cook with on a day-to-day basis are packed with medicinal properties that many of us today completely forget about. So if you'd like to learn more and discover the medicines inside your kitchen cabinet, head over to the herbalistpath.com/cold flu busters. And you can get my free cold and flu busters from your kitchen cabinet guide. It's got over 15 different herbs that you use on a regular basis, why they're great medicine for the human body, and a special little recipe for each and every plant we talk about. Again, that's the herbalistpath.com/cold flu busters. Enjoy! So, hey, Robin, welcome to the Herbalist Path.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Mel. It's just an honor, and I'm excited to talk about our mutual passion for herbs and plants and all those good things.
I am too, and I think that a lot of the listeners on the Herbalist Path are going to really find a lot of value or really want to connect with you, because I think one of the most sustainable ways that people can use plants as medicine today is by growing them. Like, I know it's hip and cool to go out and wildcraft, but so many people are doing that in a non-sustainable way. But you can grow your own medicine, and that's super duper cool. So I really wanted to bring you here and talk about your experience as an herbalist and talk about also just growing those plants and being able to use them well. So super stoked that you are here. I do also want to I want to hear your story. Like, how did you become a garden mentor, and how did you start making your own at-home herbal remedies, and you sold them for a while on Etsy too? I want to hear that kind of beginning of Robin's journey.
Well, geez, I mean, I have been out with the herbs ever since I could go outside. So day one, right? I've always been the person that goes and grubs around out in nature. You know, when I lived on the East Coast as a kid, I'd wait for those snow day calls and we'd get them, and I would just dart out the door and run into the cedar forest to hide under the trees and sit in the moss and just be in that space. And to me, even just doing that is being an herbalist, just grounding yourself in nature and taking it in. And I mean, cedar, just inhaling that fragrance is so calming for me. So, my journey began very, very early in my life. And I grew up, I kind of had a mixed experience growing up. I grew up on farms and ranches on the East Coast and the West Coast, and then also in the city at the beach in LA. So, kind of all over the place. And I got connected to all sorts of plants, growing my own foods. I didn't even realize, at the time that was also being an herbalist. I never really saw it as a formal thing for me. Right. Because food is medicine, right? And anything we take into or put on our bodies or experience in our world is something that has an opportunity to be an herb for us. And so I come at it at a pretty big holistic level like that. And, then as I started getting older, into my college years, I grew up in a kind of family where I was raised to go to school, and I was always very studious. I'm very interested in all of that. So I went to, university, and I finished university, and I was with a BA in English, and I was like, well, what am I going to do now? I didn't have that next thing planned out. And I struggled with it. And I moved home with my parents and lived with my dad in LA. And the first thing I found myself doing was I went out in the garden and started cleaning up. And my dad's like, why are you wasting your time doing that? And I'm like, well, this is where I can think. This is where I'm grounded. This is where I am really able to start developing more knowledge of myself when I'm connecting to plants. So I went through that journey and did not end up going into a job with plants at that point. I progressed into several different things, book publishing being one of them. I've kind of had every job that there is to have in book publishing. And from there, I had some opportunities because I ended up leaving book publishing because I was finding myself thinking of books as units, not as books. And to me, that's kind of sacrilegious.
Right.
It's totally. So, and through that whole process of working in this industry, I was always coming back to the garden. I was always working in the garden. I worked in the San Francisco Bay Area. I lived in the East Bay, on the edge of Berkeley, and we rented a house that had this magnificent ancient lemon tree. And I would go under there and just inhale that fragrance and ate a lot of those lemons. And those were just so healing for me. I didn't have a ton of time to garden because I was working a lot. I was much younger. But then I left book publishing and I was like, well, what's next? And the internet was becoming the World Wide Web. Okay, I'm dating myself here, right? So I got opportunities at that time. There weren't things like Google. There weren't things like Bing. And so I was actually hired by a company to basically be a human search engine. And so I went out and they had different lists where you could go and meet up with people and chat and talk about topics that you were interested in. So they hired me and assigned me topics. And my job was to go out on this emerging World Wide Web and find the best HTML1 websites that were out there in those topics. So to help populate these really early places. And from there, it sort of built out my internet career. I kept building on that. And then I helped some family members move to the Seattle area they were moving from a different place in California. And I got to Seattle and I saw the mountains and I was like, whoa, that grounding just came in for me. And I was like, I have to get here. So I set it as a goal, long story, made my way up here and then continued to work in the internet. And I worked in early streaming media. So if you're putting up, you're putting up podcasts, well, I worked in real audio, I worked in real video. So the things that we're using right now, I helped pioneer these things.
Nice.
I was pushing those technologies. We were also all at that point, starting to buy our first homes. Mm-hmm. And a lot of my friends were buying homes and they're like, oh, you know how to garden? Will you come help me garden? Because I'd come in, dirty fingernails and like the green thumb that's actually a, dirt thumb. Yeah. And so they were asking for help. And so I would go and help people, all of the time I'm working in my garden, but I would go and help them. And I started realizing, gosh, I was hitting stumbling blocks. I wasn't entirely prepared to be this educator of people. I wasn't the perfect garden designer. I'd always done it by what I'd learned in my hands-on experience. I'd taken a few classes here and there, but I wasn't that full-on gardener. So I then, long story behind it, but I ended up leaving technology and went back to school to study horticulture. And I did about a 1-year program. It was a little under a year, focused specifically on horticulture. And I went in trying to have an open mind. So then we'd study soils. And I'm like, oh, I want to be a soil scientist. Then we'd study botany. And I'd be like, I want to be a botanist, and so I went through all these different things. But I kept coming back to, I want to teach people because I knew not everyone had that opportunity to kind of leave their day to day and immerse themselves in a program like this. And they didn't have the opportunities I'd had prior to that, where you gain decades of knowledge from working hands-on with plants. So when I left school, I worked with a few people to continue to gain my knowledge, but I also decided I really wanted to pursue teaching people and empowering them in their garden. I wanted them to stop struggling. I wanted them to find success. I wanted them to stop wasting money by making all these mistakes that a lot of wannabe DIYers, the weekend warriors, make without guidance. And if they're going in and, you might go, oh, hey, I'm going to go take an extension class in pruning. And you go and you learn to prune from an extension class, but it has nothing to do with anything in your garden. And right. So I decided to bring the knowledge to the people in the space where they garden. And that foundation, that understanding of this niche that I could fill that was missing in the industry was something that became the platform on which I created Garden Mentors.
Nice.
And then I also offered design services. I installed gardens for a long time, but it always came back to wanting to teach people. And sometimes teaching people is saying, hey, you actually need to go hire A, B, and C because you're not going to do those things.
Right.
Give yourself time to do X, Y, and Z instead because you like those things. Hire the other things out. So helping people find these balances, right?
Yeah.
And I always wanted to incorporate food and herbs in gardens. And that might be something super surprising. So people would be, I'm like, you want blueberries in your garden? They're like, I can have blueberries. I'm like, yeah.
And I can eat them.
You can eat them and they're beautiful. And a lot of plants in that family are also used as medicine. I don't teach internal herbal medicine
right.
or build around that the way that I know you do. I really think of it as food as medicine. And if people want to go deeper with me, I'm happy to share things about that with them. But
right.
My goal is to get people growing these beautiful plants so that they can enjoy them. And then, as you know, I've also released Herbal Happy Hour Gardening, which is a garden to bar program that really looks at these opportunities of these awesome plants we can grow and transform into delicious cocktails and mocktails. So you had mentioned, you'd asked about my online product line. I'm not offering that anymore. I found that it was a passion. I love making and teaching, but to actually produce and sell the product line, it just wasn't where I belonged. I belonged teaching people to do it themselves.
I can relate to the belong in teaching people because I have a product line of Mountain Mel's, but my deepest passion is teaching people to use plants as medicine. And in that, letting them know how to grow them. But I know that you can take people so much deeper in the gardening part than I do. I'm like, here's how you do this. But yeah, you definitely dig super, super deep into it. And I think that's fantastic. I'm curious though, you said that you love to help people not struggle in their garden and make a lot of mistakes. What is the number one mistake that you have seen people make in their gardens? I'm sure that's challenging to narrow it down to one, but
down to one is tough. I have a class that I teach called the Top 10 Gardening Mistakes and How Not to Make Them.
Nice.
So getting it down to 10 is really tough. So picking from one of those, never trying, always thinking you're going to fail before you even give it a shot. And believe it or not, I see that a lot. Like people that are just so frozen up and afraid to touch the earth, afraid that they're going to kill a plant or make a mistake. And I have a huge tolerance for all sorts of mistakes in this world because we grow from them.
Right.
And, earth
I call mistakes learning lessons.
Exactly. And earth is forgiving, and, there's a very old saying, I have no idea who came up with it, but it goes something like, if you're not killing plants, you're not a gardener.
I love that. That makes me feel so much better.
See, exactly. And that's part of the thing that I do too. I want people to find joy, and so, that is definitely one really big mistake. And then another one I see that I'll mention to give folks something they really chew into is deciding to prune without knowing how to make a proper cut.
Right.
And it's really easy to butcher and damage a plant by simply trying to control it.
Right.
And I don't think this is the platform to get into how to do proper pruning. I teach classes on that. But I think that's something, before you go out and just start chopping on a plant, take the time to do some research or reach out to me. I mean, I have classes on that. I have free articles. I have a whole free article section in my website too, where you can go and sort of DIY your way through stuff. But those are some big things. And I'm going to give you one more. I know you asked for one, but I'm going to give you three.
I had a feeling it would be really hard.
Soil, respecting soil, understanding the complexity of soil, and realizing that 50% or more of a plant that you see is living in that space. That's where it lives. And that's an entire ecology. It's an entire ecosystem. Soil is alive, or it should be. When I walk into a garden and I see shrub here, shrub there, tree there, and all I see is bare earth, I worry, because nature abhors a vacuum and wants to fill it. And if we're trying to control it and keep it bare, we're actually fighting against nature. It's hard for us. It's hard on nature. When I walk into a garden and I see dandelions and plantain and clover covering the soil, and people are like, oh my God, it's such a mess. I'm like, no, you have plant medicine. You have pollinator plants. You have nature thriving in your space.
Yeah.
And so I look for the silver linings and try to help people see those as well and see the importance of these things.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So that's my 3. I'm not going to go anymore because I could go on for days.
Obviously, I love that one, especially when it comes to like the weeds that are popping up, the weeds, that are epic food and medicine. And and how they can be used and keeping that soil alive. It took me, my daughter this week, actually, they're building a worm habitat, and she's 8 and she's going to this outdoor school, and like there's pictures of her just holding a handful of worms, and she's in her happy paradise. Like she is so happy, and she's like, the other kids didn't want to touch the worms, Mom, but my kid sure as heck does. But it just brought me to that. And then she's educating me on why the worms are there in her 8-year-old way. It was really lovely. So
does she know that earthworms aren't indigenous to North America?
No, she doesn't, but I'll talk to her about it.
Tell her to take that one to school and ask that question.
Nice. But I did learn about like the difference between male and female worms. I forget what she told me it was, but
and I use that worm indigenous carefully, because they have, I think we can become indigenous to a space, and they have become indigenous. They were imported here.
So, I had no idea.
I know. We think they're important. We know they're important in our soil, but they also have been disruptors as well. So interesting stuff there. But so I have a hashtag I use on Instagram, and it goes along with a talk I do as well, called When Weeds Are Wonderful. Yeah. And so I really cover a lot of those really common weeds that we have in our gardens that people fight with. Horsetail. You're never going to get rid of that.
Good luck.
Good luck with that. And you know what? You can put it to good use. I don't use it internally personally. I don't know if you do, but I use hair. I use it in my hair rinse.
Yeah.
My hair looks special today, but I don't use shampoo or conditioner anymore. I make my own hair rinses. And horsetail is really important. Nettles too. When we bought our property that we're on now, we had to write a letter to the people that were selling it. And one of my comments was, we love the nettles, because they had a lot of nettles and blackberry. So and they told us later they really laughed at that because they don't like the nettles. Or the alders, which are incredibly important. So
awesome. I love that. That the weeds, what is it? When weeds are wonderful. They're wonderful all the time. What weeds would you think are, I mean, I know you mentioned red clover, which is a great nitrogen fixer. I know you mentioned plantain and dandelion. What are the most important weeds to have in your garden? Or Hey, I wanted to take a quick pause to show some love and gratitude to our sponsors of the Herbalist Path podcast, who make this show possible for me and possible for you too. So here it goes. Medicinal mushrooms are all the rage these days, if you didn't know already. And with great reason, because they are powerful medicine that can improve your health and your life in so many different ways when they're well made. Yeah, it's true. There's a lot of stuff on the market that isn't going to be so effective. And that's why you need to find a brand that you can actually trust. For me, that brand is Whole Sun Wellness, and this is the creation of a brilliant woman and fellow mama, Jamie Bonfiglio. She's an international mushroom educator that has been working in the medicinal mushroom industry for years. And this is when she saw firsthand how many other companies take shortcuts when it comes to their products. And Jamie wasn't having it. She set out to build her company the right way. Whole Sun Wellness is here to raise the industry standards so those crap mushrooms on the market aren't getting into your body or your family's body. Whole Sun Wellness is the first company to test and report nutritional facts for all of their extracts. They go beyond industry standards every step of the way, from sourcing to extraction and final testing. And as the owners of the largest medicinal mushroom farm in the United States, Whole Sun Wellness is taking control of their supply chain for the highest quality and absolute full transparency. They're even the first company to include pure mycelium extract in every single product. So when you're thinking of getting medicinal mushrooms for you and your family, Whole Sun Wellness is exactly the ones you want. Also, be sure to check out their new Mycolites. These are the world's first dissolvable electrolyte tablets. They're featuring functional mushroom extracts that'll give you more energy, more stamina, and recovery as well. And who couldn't use all of that? The other thing is, they are these adorable little mushroom-shaped tablets, and they come in like a little Altoids box, but way cooler than Altoids because they're Mycolites. Anyways, head to wholesunwellness.com to grab yourself some Mycolites and all of the other functional medicinal mushrooms that you and your family need. And of course, you can grab that link right here in the show notes now.
Wow. Well, I think
how long is this podcast?
Right. So often they get divided, right? Important is such a loaded term, right? I think it really depends on your garden, right? So if you have, if you have dandelions, right? And you have soil like I have, which is rock hard clay with rocks in it, dandelion not only gives you a plant pollinators feed on, a plant that feeds wildlife with its leaves. And of course, you and I can be eating all these parts as well. But it also has that powerful, powerful taproot, right? Which we probably harvest. I happen to be drinking roasted dandelion tea right now. Love it. But that powerful taproot in the garden, right? They get super deep. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've dug them up and they always snap in the ground. And that's great because then it'll just divide and you'll get more. But those powerful taproots work like drills in this dense soil. So they break up the soil and create space for air pockets and water and soil life to move through it. So this is nature doing its thing. Dock does the same thing. Dock weeds get a big bad rap, but they're incredibly important too. So I think, what the most important weed is in your garden may be determined on your garden itself. I have a whole section of my garden that's super swampy and alders grow in it. And a lot of people talk about alders as weed trees. And honestly, I'm constantly pulling up alder seedlings everywhere. They're messy trees. They aren't beautiful when they turn color. They don't get fall color, but they're nitrogen fixers.
Right.
And so they're building habitat in the soil. They drop a lot of leaves, so they build leaf duff. And then under them grow lots and lots of horsetail. And the horsetail, we talked earlier about some of these uses we have for the horsetail when we harvest it as herbalists. But horsetail also has this amazing ability to clean up grossness in the soil, problems in the soil. And so we have water running off the ridge we're on, and it passes through our pond, and then it runs off through a little creek that we have cut through the alder forest, and the horsetail follows that creek. And so the horsetail is doing this amazing job of cleaning that water that's passing through, right? Cleaning the soil, cleaning the water. That water then passes off into a ditch and runs into a bay that empties into the Pacific Ocean. Mm-hmm. So it's nature doing its job for us. So if we as gardeners can have tolerance for these plants that we've been told we should get rid of, that we've been sold a bill of goods that the plantain and the dandelion and the clover are bad for our lawns, then we can start to accept that lawns aren't even natural. They
Right.
don't exist in nature. Those other plants do. And when we have these mixed ecologies, we have a better, healthy ecosystem overall for ourselves. It creates less work for us. And the plants take care of themselves, and the soil takes care of themselves. It's all that ecology working together and nature doing its thing.
I love it. I love it so much. Especially like letting nature do its thing. I live in an area where I have many alders and cottonwoods and horsetail. I don't have as much dandelion around where I am. It's pretty sandy. I'm actually on the Sandy River, very appropriately named. But I love having those plants around me. And I love that you bring up horsetail, because I think of it as great medicine. And I also am fully aware of its ability to draw up toxins. It also draws up the great minerals and nutrients from the earth. And I believe their roots go down like 40 feet plus into the ground. Is that correct?
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
At 40 to 400, that 400 is somehow the limit number that I remember. But that's how it has so many powerful minerals and nutrients in it. Right.
Right. And it's for those that don't know about horsetail, it's been around since the dinosaurs. It has been around way longer than we have. And so it's learned to really adapt, and it's incredibly powerful. Those incredibly powerful roots that you talked about. I know people that in my industry that have tried to get rid of it for clients by burying it under 20 feet of new soil, and it just comes back.
Yeah.
And it's not a plant like a dandelion. It doesn't bloom. It doesn't have flowers. It's more closely related to like a mushroom or a fern. It throws out what are called spores, and it's a complicated thing that I'm not going to go into, but it has this incredible ability to spread itself in many different ways. So, people will, a lot of people, I'm like, if you come and see my garden, you're going to think it's a weedy mess and be like, how in the world can she possibly say that she's a professional garden designer or a professional gardener? Because what one person may perceive in my garden as being a weedy mess, I see as medicine and habitat. And, that horsetail, I have a whole area where I've planted aronia berries and elderberries and shrubby plants. And it used to be lawn. We stopped mowing it, and the horsetail came in. We call it snaky land because all the garter snakes love to live in there. And nice. I know that not because I'm tramping around, because my dog loves to go hunt the garter snakes. It's a game for her. And we only have garter snakes in Western Washington, so we're very lucky here. We don't have any dangerous snakes, so to speak. Right. So it's pretty safe. But these plants that we've been convinced are problematic and just really we should get rid of and we should fight against. I think it's really important to step back and say, maybe not.
Yeah.
I know there is
another. How can we
segment.
use this? Yeah,
exactly. How can we use it, and why do we want to fight with everything? Like, what?
Because we must conquer everything. Conquer nature. Oh wait, nature's way stronger than we'll ever be.
Yeah, exactly.
Go work with her.
Work with nature, accept it, and move on and do something different. And, like I did, I planted shrubs in with the horsetail. And guess what? They're all getting along just fine.
Yeah.
I don't have to mow. I don't have to weed anything else out because the horsetail's taking care of that.
And you have extra access to your own medicine.
Exactly.
In your
own I have a lot of medicine growing in my garden. A lot of medicine. Yeah.
I bet you do. I bet you have a long list.
I could go on for days, and I'm constantly trying new things. I am definitely, that's part of what I do as a garden experimenter, right? Is I try to pre-test, how's it going to work? Is it going to work before I start telling people to grow things or telling them how to grow things? So I try not to work from rote, right? I try to work from experience. And, I was really blessed this year. Two plants I've really been wanting to grow, 2 herbs I've really been wanting to grow in my garden that are, kind of difficult to come by to start. I have a really dear friend that works in Eastern Washington as a native plant restorer and in a native plant nursery. And she brought me the 2, Mountain Arnica and sweetgrass.
Nice.
And so I have put them into my garden, and we'll see how the mountain arnica does. There is meadow arnica that grows easily down here, and it struggles a little bit sometimes in my garden. I have really dense soil, so it has problems with that. So I'm trying that this year, and I planted the sweetgrass just a few weeks ago, and it's already coming up. It's happy as can be. So I'm going to have this really just wonderful plant that's I'll be able to share with other people. It'll be something I'll be able to gift forward as well. And that's something I try to do when I can, when it's appropriate.
Right.
Some plants don't belong in some areas too. I do recognize that as well. So.
Awesome. I want to come see your garden. I'm glad you're in the Pacific Northwest and I could actually do that at some point in time.
Please do.
You talked a little bit about horsetail and your hair rinse, and I'm wondering if you're willing to share what you put in your hair rinse, because I know lots of great benefits for horsetail, particularly in hair and skin and nails and bones and joints and all that good stuff. But yeah, what's in it if you're willing?
Yeah. So I'll be happy to share. And then, just so you know, I'll throw this out there. I am going to be speaking on the DIY stage at the Northwest Flower and Garden Festival in February 2022 with DIY lessons on things like this. So if you don't catch it all in this and you want to learn more about, making the body products from homegrown herbs, or ones that you can buy, I do honor that. It's okay. I buy plants that aren't from seed too, all of that. And then I'm also going to teach some herbal happy hour garden to bar lessons.
Super fun. Talk. And that's in Seattle, right? Like live
that's
and in Seattle. The flesh.
It's the third largest garden show in the world.
Super
and
fun.
It's this will be, COVID throws off the stats, but I think this is my 13th year in a row speaking there. So It's really fun. It's lovely. And they're setting up good COVID protocol rules. I don't know exactly what they'll be yet, but I know that I'm getting notices on it. So I know they're working on that really carefully. Okay. Hair rinse. Yeah. Let's talk about my hair rinse. So I do vary my ingredients, sometimes seasonally and sometimes based on what I have, but I infuse my herbs into vinegar, and a lot of people will use apple cider vinegar, which I do love for it, but it can get expensive to use it in the volume that I make it in, because I make like a kombucha sized jug at a time. And so I decided to use white distilled vinegar for mine. And I thought I'd try it. I know some people have issues with that because I believe that it's made with a grain. So that can be an issue for some people, but vinegar.
Right.
So I take a big kombucha jar that I have a sealing lid for, and I pack in horsetail, and then usually calendula goes in. Almost always I put calendula in it. If I have fresh nasturtium, I will put that in. Rose petals often go in. Rosemary.
Yeah.
Those are some of the ones that I tend to put in. Sometimes I'll put in plantain too. I do like that one as well for the hair rinse. And then sometimes I'll do nettle, and often I do different jugs. I'll do nettle as a separate hair rinse from my horsetail hair rinse because they have similar characteristics, and the nettle can actually darken hair. So I have to be careful with that. The calendula can lighten it a little bit. So those are usually kind of my base herbs. I feel like there's some others that I'm leaving out. It might depend on what I have in my dried arsenal, if it's the middle of winter, or what I have out in the garden at the moment. And then separately, I will do a jar with vinegar and marshmallow root.
Nice. And that's like your conditioner.
That's like a conditioner. And I've learned over time, and I have pretty dry to normal hair. If I put the marshmallow directly into the other infusion, sometimes it's too weighty for my hair. I mean, marshmallow is in many, many hair product ingredients already. So I will determine how much I'm going to add based on kind of where my hair's at that time. And so I'll infuse that for at least a month, sometimes longer. And I'll use either fresh herbs or dried herbs because I'm doing it into vinegar. And then I'll strain it all out. And in order to use the product, I get one of those, I store it in glass, but when I'm going to use it in each batch, when I rinse my hair out, I will pour a little out of a glass jar into one of those squeeze bottles, like you'll see at a picnic for ketchup or mustard,
Oh,
has a little
nice.
squeezer. And so I pour about a tablespoon of that in after I've added warm water, because you don't want to add the water. If you're in the shower and you've got vinegar in a bottle and you add water, it'll spray everywhere. So I add the water and then I add the vinegar and I just shake it up and rinse my hair out and scrub it a little bit. And then boom, that's it.
Nice.
And I have not used shampoo and conditioner. And I used to be condition my hair every time I wash kind of person. It's been 2.5 years now.
Awesome.
It takes about 2 weeks if you're going to go full no poo kind of to get used to it. Your hair, you have to get the oils, get adjusted. There's a couple of weeks of some pretty bad stuff with your hair.
Right.
But once you get past that, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty much what I do. And I used to sell it. It was a pretty popular product, but again, it's just something I'm not doing, but I am teaching, and I will have that on the list of things at the garden show.
Awesome.
I always do hair rinses there. So how about you? Do you make hair rinses?
I have before. I'm currently using shampoo and conditioner again, though, but I definitely made some, and I would use horsetail and rosemary.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do calendula, and I should have maybe, but I love the tip on the marshmallow. I didn't do that either, but I'm like, ooh, with marshmallow, I could really go back to that. And I would also do the baking soda, and I used apple cider vinegar. And it was great. I forget why I stopped doing it, but I did. Right. I might go back. Who knows? I'll play all kinds of different ways. But yeah, definitely the horsetail in there and the rosemary, both are really specific for healthy hair and nails as well. Well, I don't know about nails and rosemary.
Right.
Maybe, but
probably.
Yeah.
I like the tingliness of it.
Yeah. Exactly.
I like the tingliness. 2 other herbs I include that kind of came to me afterwards. One, lavender, I often put in because I just love lavender.
Yeah.
And then another one that's kind of an unusual one that I love to add, and I use it in my herbal happy hour recipes as well, and I love growing it in my garden, is sea buckthorn.
Yeah.
And, as you probably know, it's a berry. So the fruit, it's super chock full of vitamin C. It's delicious. It's like, I describe it as like, if an orange and a passion fruit had a baby, it would taste like that. It's so delicious that way. And it grows here. Nice. I have it in my garden. And it's a plant that they realized wild horses were eating it. And when they did, their coats got more glossy. And so their leaves and the fruit have these really powerful oils. So when I extract my berries into alcohol for herbal happy hour, you can definitely see the different layers of the oil, the fruit, and then the other juices. It's just a really interesting division. And all of it is delicious in the drinks. Like, I don't worry about a heavy strain on it because it's so good. I just get rid of the seeds and, do a light strain on it.
Hey, I wanted to take a quick pause to show some love and gratitude to our sponsors of the Herbalist Path podcast, who make this show possible for me and possible for you too. So here it goes. I love this time of year. It's spring, the sun is shining, and all of our beautiful plant friends are popping up. It's amazing. Unless, of course, you're one of the millions of people who suffer from seasonal allergies. The itchy, watery eyes, the sneezing and wheezing that's straight miserable. Thankfully, there are some amazing herbs that can help you with all of that. Just like the herbs inside of Kick-Ass Allergy from Wish Garden Herbs, one of my absolute favorite herbal companies out there. Kick-Ass Allergy, yes, I said ask without the K at the end. Anyways, this formula has yerba santa, nettles, echinacea for that immune support, and orange peels, all which come together to help dry up those excessive mucosal secretions. Yep, I'm talking about the sniffles and the stuffy nose, the watery eyes, and all that jazz. This blend also acts as a great expectorant and can help ease the swelling and inflammation in those mucosal tissues. It is a top go-to for seasonal allergies. And get this, they combine all those beautiful herbs with glycerin, so it actually tastes pretty darn good. Or should I say, it tastes kick-ass, without the K at the end. Anyways, if allergy season is miserable for you and you want a natural remedy that actually works for those itchy eyes and being all sneezy and wheezy, you have got to check out Wish Garden Herbs Kick-Ass Allergy. And for those of you with the little kiddos, no sweat, they've got a Kick It allergy too. And you pregnant mamas? You don't have to suffer either. They've got a kick-ass allergy formula just for you. So head over to wishgardenherbs.com or check out the link in the show notes and go grab yourself some kick-ass allergy so you can enjoy spring again. That's beautiful. I love that you do herbal happy hour because I have an excessively long history of being a bartender and becoming an herbalist as well. Like one of the things I love to do is dance the medicinal properties of plants with their flavor profiles to make things that taste great so people want to put them in their bodies. But I know so many people these days are searching for alcohol alternatives, and many are still looking for alcohol enhancers. So, having that herbal happy hour it's so much fun. Like I got access to all of that too, which is great. And what a fun program.
It is really fun. When COVID hit, definitely two things took off: gardening and drinking.
Yeah, right.
And
herbalism did too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. Taking care of ourselves and staying home. And so I sort of just I was like, let's try to make some new stuff. And so I started infusing, and that's part of the benefit of signing up for Herbal Happy Hour. There are a few benefits, right? One, deliciousness. You get to learn how to grow the plants and then make back bar infusions and then make mocktails and cocktails. So booze or booze free, right? You also get to stay home where you're safe to enjoy them. You don't have to go out to a bar. You don't have to pay those top dollar prices. And it's just this really fun thing that you can do. The other thing is I've already tested all of this, right? I don't know about you. I know you have all these product lines. You've probably made some disasters along the way, and then you toss them and that's expensive. So I've kind of taken that expense risk out of the picture for folks so that they, everything's already been tested. It already works and it's already delicious, whether you want the booze or not. So I love it,
Yeah.
And there's so many delicious flavor profiles that you can get when you make your own that you won't find, at a typical bar or,
right.
Or you'll pay a lot of money to get them.
There are so many ways to do it. Yeah, it's fun. And save a lot of money doing it too, which is an extra bonus, right?
Exactly.
And especially if you're growing everything yourself, like all of the bonuses.
I was at the grocery store because I don't grow everything I eat. I was at our co-op yesterday, and they sell some really unusual things sometimes, right? And one of the things they had in a plastic package, that's one thing I hate about buying fresh herbs at the grocery store, is all those plastic containers. And they had macrot lime. And it was in a tiny clamshell, and there were probably 5 or 6 lime leaves in it. And it was like $4.29. You can grow that plant.
Right.
And you will have more than you will ever need.
You will be sharing with all of your friends and neighbors.
Right. You probably spend maybe it depends on the size of the plant that you buy, but maybe $20 to $40 on the plant, and you have it for life. It's
a
amazing.
Better way to go. Yeah, for sure. I love all of the insight you have shared with everybody, and Herbal Happy Hour and Garden Mentors and all of that great information. I would love to know how else people can find you.
All right. So you mentioned Garden Mentors.
Gardenmentors.com, right?
Gardenmentors.com. everything falls under the umbrella there. So you can go there. There are free articles. You can sign up to be notified when we're going to open the doors on Herbal Happy Hour Garden to Bar program. And as you know, you will get a free recipe to try when you do that. Yeah. So there's some deliciousness for you right there. And then there's also Garden Mentors Academy. That's something else, a place that I teach. You can sign up for that, or you can just get on the general newsletter, and I send out tips and tricks and updates that way. I'm pretty active on Instagram at Garden Mentors. That's a great way to find me. I do have a Facebook page, but I'm not very active there, so It's not the ideal place. But Instagram and gardenmentors.com. And as I mentioned, I'll be speaking at the Northwest Flower and Garden Festival in February of 2022. The schedule will be going up soon, I think, for the speakers. And that's just gardenshow.com. So you can go there, and I'll have links on my website as well. But those are the best ways to find me. Hopefully next year, I will resume doing volunteer nature walks at the Padilla Bay Environmental Research Center here in Skagit Valley, where I live. And I take people on guided hikes through the Upland Trail to learn about all of the wonderful wild plants, native plants, weeds, and opportunities that we can learn about by immersing ourselves in nature, and what we can learn about that really important place. Because we, in the Padilla Bay region, that Padilla Bay is part of the national estuarine system, and it's a protected estuary, which there aren't very many on the West Coast. So it's a really cool place. Right now we have thousands of snow geese flying overhead every day, and eagles mating. And it's just a really, really special place. And if you're ever up here, it's a great opportunity.
It sounds super magical and amazing. That's fun. Before we go, what words of wisdom would you give to people that want to start growing more plants as medicine in their garden?
Well, I think all plants are medicine, right? Some are really powerful medicine that we don't want to touch because they're so powerful, they're toxic to us.
Right.
We have to be careful with that. But I think, grow what you love. And if you're going to choose a plant, be aware of where you're going to put it. So for instance, if you're like, well, I love lavender, but I live in a swampy forest, might not be your best choice. So it's really important to get to know your environment and make your choices around that. And start with things that you love. If you've got that forest and you wanted to start with lavender, you say, okay, lavender's not going to work, but maybe I'll grow huckleberry.
Right.
Or something like that. And I think that's just a really great way to go, and get out and learn.
Yeah.
That's a really wonderful thing to do. And then if you already have a garden growing and you're like, gosh, I want to get into herbalism, maybe just do a little research on the plants you already have, because odds are there's something growing in your garden right now, whether it's a weed like dandelion or a well-known herb like rosemary. You've got something growing in your garden right now.
Yeah. I love that. And I love, and I love loving plants. So it all goes really well together. That is great wisdom, because then that's how you get that connection, and you take your time to learn and create that relationship with the plants that you're growing and with the earth too.
Exactly. And forgive yourself. If it doesn't work out, or it doesn't do what you think it's supposed to do, take a breath and recognize that things live and die, and it's all a cycle. And if a plant gives up the ghost, it's just going to go back into the earth and become a part of the greater whole to give opportunity for the next thing that comes along. And I know a lot of us struggle with that, and it's part of that human control thing.
Right.
But, gardening can be kind of that love is letting go experience for some of us too. And it's a lot easier when we do that. And we rejoice in the successes, that we see. So, yeah.
Awesome. That's beautiful. Thank you, Robin, for coming on to the show. I really appreciate having you here. And I can't wait for my listeners to connect with you as well and start growing more incredibly gorgeous gardens. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. And I really look forward to them not only learning to grow from me, but learning to become herbal medicine makers, especially from the lessons that you're teaching. This is I think you and I can bring some pretty wonderful kind of full circle opportunity to people that way. A little bit of something for everyone there. So yeah, it's really a blessing to be here with you and share our passion with each other and with your audience.
Yeah, with the masses.
Thank you for that.
Exactly. I'm like, ooh, should I change my hashtag for this interview? Like usually it's hashtag spread like wildflowers, but spread like intentionally planted flowers.
Right. Or just when weeds are wonderful, right?
Right.
All of the above.
I love it all for sure. Thanks again, Robin, and have a beautiful day.
You too. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of The Herbalist Path. Being on this journey with you is absolutely incredible. If you dig this episode, please leave me a review on your favorite podcast player and share it with your friends so that together we can make herbalism hashtag spread like wildflowers. On another note, I must mention that while I know you're getting some good info here, it's important to remember that this podcast is purely for entertainment and educational purposes and is not intended to be a substitute for medical treatment. While the information in this podcast is absolutely relevant, herbs work differently for each person and each condition. That's why I recommend you work with a qualified practitioner, whether that be another herbalist, a naturopath, or your doctor. So thank you again. I am truly honored that you're tuning into these episodes and on the path with me to make sure that there's an herbalist in every home again. Don't forget to share this episode with your friends so that we can make herbalism hashtag spread like wildflowers. It has been so much fun and so, joyous watching all of my medicinal plant friends popping up in my garden, from the Ella Campaign to the Comfrey and the Arnica. I love seeing these friends pop up. And if you are still trying to decide what to grow in your medicinal herb garden, you've got to grab my guide. It's all about the most essential herbs that every mom should know and should grow. So I teach you how to grow them and the many different ways that you can use them. If you want to grab the guide, go ahead. It's free, and I'm pretty sure you're going to get a lot of delight and use out of it. And there's a link to it in the show notes. I'm wishing you tons of happy medicine planting.